I can't believe that we are already at my 5th video in my Bleach review series, and in this video we are going to be talking about the Hueco portion of the Arrancar arc. This section of the story is very battle heavy, as we have multiple battles taking place between Ichigo and his friends versus the Arrancars, and later they are assisted by the arrival of captains from the Gotei 13 as they end up facing off against the Espada. Some notable battles that I'm really looking forward to breaking down include Aranyaro versus Rukia, as well as Mairi versus Szayelaporro, and how can I forget the final battle between Ichigo and Grimmjow. There is a lot to speak about, including Orihime's feelings during this portion of the story, and how her fear of Ichigo's hollow mask had been holding him back during his battle against Grimmjow. You also have Grimmjow as a character who has a deep-rooted superiority complex, while at the same time having a desire to prove himself. We see the lengths that he goes through in order to accomplish this desire through his behavior towards Ichigo, his opponent, going as far as to heal him, and even fend off his fellow Espada Ulquiorra, just so that he could battle Ichigo once more. And of course, Ichigo's intentions for coming to Hueco Mundo are called into question, whether if he was truly there to protect his friend Orihime, or if he had come to the world of the Arrancars driven by his instinctual desire for battle. Now that he has gained control over his hollow mask, is the influence of his inner hollow impairing Ichigo's judgment? This is something that Orihime ends up questioning after witnessing how much Ichigo was enjoying battling against Grimmjow. So let's save some of this discussion for the actual video and begin my analysis of the Hueco Mundo arc. Before the video begins, only 20% of the people who actually watch my content are subscribed to the channel. If you enjoy these videos, then subscribe and stick around for more content just like this. Now let's get back to the topic of the video. So the Hueco Mundo portion of the Arrancar arc takes place between chapters 241 to 315, and in the anime it is adapted between episodes 143 to 203. However, during this span of episodes there is about 25 episodes of filler, which include the Captain Shusuke Amagai filler. So excluding these filler episodes, these 75 chapters we're talking about here are adapted into 36 episodes. So diving straight into the material, upon arriving in Hueco Mundo, Ichigo, Chad and Uryu must fight their way to the surface of Hueco Mundo. Before too long, they encounter the childlike Arrancar Nell, who ends up guiding Ichigo and the others towards the fortress of Las Noches. And when they end up encountering a giant Arrancar made up of sand, it is at this point that Rukia and Renji join Ichigo's party, as Rukia uses the speciality of a Zanpakuto in order to freeze the Arrancar that is made up of sand. Upon arriving into Las Noches, they split up at the forked path, as Ichigo is the first to encounter an enemy within the fortress, as he faces off against the Privaron former Espada Dodoni, initially losing to Dodoni because of Ichigo's persistence to not use his Bankai so early on. He is eventually forced to use his Bankai after Dodoni continually persists for him to use it. After activating his hollow mask, he is easily able to take down his opponent. This battle served to teach Ichigo that the opponents that he will be facing off against within Hueco Mundo are merciless, and Dodoni serves as a bridge of some sorts to cross over from his prior encounters to this new world. To his detriment, during this battle, Dodoni behaved with a lot of honor. This is in stark contrast to the behavior that we've seen from Arrancars like Ulquiorra, Grimmjow and even Yami. Uryu and Chad also find themselves facing off against Privaron Espada. Uryu is able to defeat Tsuruchi and Chad is able to defeat Gantenvein. These battles reveal to us the fruits of their labor, as we understand the abilities that Uryu has acquired after regaining his Quincy powers, and we learn about the results of Chad's training with Renji, as he is now able to transform both of his arms, his right arm primarily being used for defense and his left arm being used for attack. Chad's victory over the Privaron Espada is short-lived, as he ends up encountering the Espada Noitra, who takes him down with a single strike. Now this of course is very similar to the Soul Society arc, and this is what I meant by there being events that mirror each other between these two arcs, as they serve to show the contrasting nature between Hueco Mundo and the Soul Society. When Chad had been taken down by Shunsui, it was after a display of sympathy from Shunsui, who had just told Chad to give up. After warning him several times, it was only after Chad was persistent that Shunsui had taken him down. Whereas contrastingly, Noitra is ruthless and without mercy takes down Chad. I just wanted to highlight this one mirror event because later on in the video I'm going to be talking about the purposeful parallels that exist between the Hueco Mundo arc and the Soul Society arc. But continuing on with the story, Renji ends up encountering the Espada Szayelaporro, and after failing to utilize his Bankai against him, he is accompanied by Uryu, but even his abilities are rendered useless against the Espada. Despite the two of them working together, they are unable to turn the tide of the battle. Meanwhile, Rukia encounters the Espada Aruñero, who after removing his mask reveals his true identity as Rukia's former lieutenant Kain Shiba. She had initially believed that the Espada was the real Kain Shiba, but after she exposes him to be an imposter, Rukia battles the Espada as she attempts to restore the honor of her late lieutenant, whose body is being controlled by the Espada. When Rukia is overwhelmed and she ends up being impaled through the stomach, she utilizes her Zanpakuto's third dance in order to impale Aruñero through his skull as she defeats the Espada. Understandably, Rukia was very emotionally invested in the outcome of this battle. We had known about her history with Kain Shiba from the Soul Society arc. The impact is so much that Rukia loses the will to actually swing her Zanpakuto, and this is what results in Aruñero taking the upper hand. During this time, she thinks back to her first day of training with Kain. Having a lack of self-confidence and feeling inadequate, she had asked Kain whether she deserves to be within the Gotei 13. She questions her purpose, whether if she is actually following her heart's desire. In this instance, Kain ends up reassuring her, as he tells her that the purpose of the heart is to fight and to protect. There are two battles that Shinigami partake in, the first being the battle to protect the weak, and while the second is a battle to protect honor. Through the story of Bleach, we've had several examples of such battles, with an example of a battle to protect others being Ichigo protecting his sisters when the Hollow Fishbone D had attacked, and an example of a battle to protect one's honor being Ichigo's encounter with the Grand Fisher. He concludes by telling Rukia that ultimately what we protect comes down to the heart. A heart is formed between people who grow close to one another, and when you die, that heart that was formed serves as a reminder for the people that you leave behind. And it is for this reason that Kain states that you shouldn't die alone, because you continue to live on within the hearts of the people that you leave behind. When Rukia realizes that she isn't facing off against the real Kain, and the heart of Kain lives on within her, she is able to defeat the Espada. After this battle, she is badly wounded. She desires to not die alone as she remembers all of her friends and her family. She remains firm in her desire to save Orihime, because like her, Rukia knows all too well what it feels like to be held in captivity. Like her friends, she tries to push forward to rescue Orihime, but she collapses. We then follow Ichigo as he journeys into Las Noches. It is here that he is confronted by Ulquiorra, who informs him of Rukia's death. An important aspect of Ichigo's character is highlighted here, as he tells Ulquiorra that he has no reason to fight against him, since Ulquiorra isn't responsible for hurting any of his friends. But when Ulquiorra reveals that he was responsible for bringing Orihime to Hueco-Mundo, within a split second, Ichigo's desire to push forward is altered, as he immediately attacks Ulquiorra, as he continues to reveal to Ichigo that he had intended for Orihime to look like a traitor, by giving her the choice to leave for Hueco-Mundo so that her friends would be spared from danger. When Ichigo utilizes his Bankai with his hollow mask and attempts to end this battle quickly, he realizes that he is no match for Ulquiorra, because even after launching his most powerful attack towards him, Ulquiorra appears to be unfazed. When Ulquiorra reveals that he is the 4th ranked Espada, he impales Ichigo through the chest with his hand. Appearing to have been killed, his lifeless body is brought to Orihime. He demands that she heals him so that Grimmjow can kill Ichigo with his own hands. He is so desperate to face off against Ichigo that he even challenges Ulquiorra through utilizing a device called a Kaja Negation. He traps Ulquiorra in an alternate dimension for a few hours, which gives him enough time to face off against Ichigo in their final battle. He wants Ichigo to be healed completely so that they can have a fair battle. When Orihime is reluctant to heal Ichigo, especially if he is only going to be killed by Grimmjow, Ichigo reassures her, as he honors Grimmjow's request and even asks for Orihime to heal Grimmjow so that he too will be fighting in his best condition. And this of course is a continuation of the rivalry that was established during the Arrancar invasion. At the onset of their battle, Grimmjow calls into question Ichigo's reason for coming to Hueco-Mundo. Did he really come to save Orihime, or was that an excuse for his instinctual desire for battle? This is a very important point because it builds upon Orihime's doubts with Ichigo. While the two characters are facing off in their final battle, the emotional undertones of this fight are conveyed to us through Orihime, through what she feels about the power that Ichigo is utilizing in order to protect her. At this point actually, she doesn't even realize that Ichigo is protecting her. Her doubts lead her to believe that he is a monster who is driven by his desire for battle, while Ichigo's reason for fighting is questioned by his opponent and the one that he has come to rescue. On the other hand, Grimmjow's reason and purpose is contrastingly well established here. He is battling purely out of instinct. He desires to be the last man standing, the victor, no matter the cost. Before the beginning of their battle, Ichigo had reassured Orihime that he was going to win, but she has difficulty accepting this because of her own powerlessness and her desire to fight alongside Ichigo. But instead, once again, she is seeing the back of him as he rushes off without her. The last time that they were on the battlefield together, when Ichigo had arrived to protect her against Yami and Ulquiorra, she unfortunately had served as a distraction Ichigo, and this wasn't her fault. It was because of Ichigo's stubborn belief that he has to shoulder the burden of protecting everybody around him. He doesn't even trust his friends to fight alongside him, or believe that they are strong enough to face off against the enemy, and it is for this reason that time and time again he leaves behind Orihime, who wants nothing more than to fight alongside him and to protect him, to use her shields to defend against any attack, and to use her abilities to heal any wounds that Ichigo may sustain. There are several examples of Ichigo underestimating his friends. We've just spoken about how he does this with Orihime. During the Arrancar invasion arc, he also does this with Chad, and just before coming to Hueco he doesn't have belief that Chad and Uryu are strong enough to accompany him, but they end up convincing him to trust in them too, that they too have trained and worked hard and care enough for Orihime to fight to protect her. At the start of Ichigo's battle against Grimmjow, Nell expresses that she is scared and nervous because she is worried about Ichigo, but Orihime reassures her that Ichigo had said that he was definitely going to win. She reveals how well she knows Ichigo by describing him as a gentle person, and when he uses strong words with conviction, it is like he is making a vow to himself. Orihime's words help Nell to continue to have belief in Ichigo, as Orihime reluctantly tells her that they have to wait and believe. And now what you have to notice here is that Kubo draws Orihime with her hands clenched and trembling. It is like she is holding herself back again, almost in a way having difficulty believing what she has just said. She of course wants to help him, but is having difficulty with her feelings of powerlessness. When Ichigo activates his Bankai and dons his hollow mask, Orihime becomes fearful. It is difficult for her to conceal her feelings, and eventually Ichigo even notices. Even after Ichigo acknowledges her feelings and tries to reassure her, she cannot help but to feel afraid. At this point in the battle, Grimmjow also activates his Resurrection, as their battle takes a seriously destructive turn. They both appear to be enjoying the battle, as they are evenly matched, with Ichigo having donned his hollow mask longer than he previously could. Despite his efforts, Orihime continues to be afraid. Not only is his appearance frightening her, she also notices the change in his personality, as his hollow mask brings out Ichigo's instinctual desire for battle. This battle instinct is animalistic. If you've seen my Soul Society world building video, then you'll know about how Kubo had incorporated the Buddhist concept of samsara into his story. When it comes to Hueco Mundo and its dwellers, I'd refer to them as hungry ghosts, as Hueco Mundo fits into the hungry ghost realm from the samsara cycle of reincarnation. So in order to battle and defeat these hungry beasts, Ichigo too must learn to tap into his animal instincts, and he does so through utilizing his hollow mask, but this proves too much for Orihime to accept. In particular, the change in Ichigo's eyes remind her of the eyes that she had seen when her own brother had been transformed into a hollow. The whites of Ichigo's eyes have now turned black, and she could no longer see herself reflected in those hollow eyes. When Ichigo protects Orihime from one of Grimmjow's attacks, they have an opportunity to look into each other's eyes. Kubo does an excellent job of depicting Ichigo as a frightening monster, while it is evident that Orihime is shocked at what she sees. You can literally see the fear in her eyes. It is evident that Ichigo is affected by Orihime's feelings here. Despite wearing that hollow mask, he is losing against Grimmjow, and Nell even comments upon this. Why is it that he is getting beaten so badly despite wearing that hollow mask that had once made him invincible? It isn't until Nell pulls up Orihime on her feelings that Orihime begins to realize the reason behind why Ichigo is fighting. She backs up Ichigo by revealing that he had only attacked Ulquiorra once he had heard Orihime's name, going on to describe Ichigo as a human who has become a Shinigami, and in addition to this, he is wearing that hollow mask, and he is utilizing an incredible amount of power. It is evident that this is hurting him. You can see that he is in pain, and who is he doing all of this for? Nell tells Orihime that he is fighting for her. He is risking his life using that power and getting covered in blood for the sake of Orihime. So if Orihime won't cheer Ichigo on, then who else will? Orihime had initially gone to Hueco Mundo in order to protect her friends, but when she had learned that Ichigo had come to rescue her, she had felt joy. She was happy that he had come for her, but upon seeing him with that hollow mask, she started to feel conflicted, whether if he really was here to rescue her, or was he here for the thrill of being challenged by a worthy adversary in battle. After Nell's encouragement, Orihime finds the strength to encourage Ichigo, as she yells out for him not to die. With tears flowing down her face, she tells Ichigo that he doesn't have to win. He doesn't even have to try his hardest. She just doesn't want Ichigo to get hurt anymore. It is through her words that Ichigo finds the strength to finally cut down and defeat Grimmjow. At the end of their battle, Orihime is relieved to see that Ichigo has returned to normal. Their victory over Grimmjow is short-lived however, as Noitra arrives and severely wounds Grimmjow. Ichigo begins to fight the Espada while Orihime is restrained by his Frashion Tessera. Ichigo is still injured from his battle against Grimmjow, so he is easily being battered by Noitra. When Nell can no longer endure seeing Ichigo being beaten, she transforms into her adult form, and we get to learn about the the troubled past between Noitra and Nell. But just as Nell releases her Zanpakuto and begins to overpower Noitra, she transforms back into a child form and ends up being easily defeated by the Espada. At this point in the story, all of the individuals who have gone to Hueco Mundo appear to be in a hopeless situation. Ichigo is about to be defeated by Noitra, Uryu and Renji stand no chance against Szayelaporro, and Rukia is about to be killed by Zomari. The Soul Society intervene and send 4 captains of the Gotei 13 to Hueco Mundo. Unohana arrives to heal any of the casualties, while Byakuya arrives to protect Rukia from Zomari. Mairi arrives to face off against Szayelaporro, and Kinpachi arrives to fight against Noitra. The captains end up winning their respective battles against the various Espada, but just as the situation appears to settle down, the number 1 ranking Espada Stark appears and kidnaps Orihime, returning her to Aizen. It is at this point that Aizen reveals his true plan, stating that he had used Orihime to lure Ichigo and the others to Hueco Mundo in order to reduce the numbers of the Gotei 13, with 4 captains trapped within Hueco Mundo and the substitute Shinigami Ichigo also being stuck there. Aizen now departs for Karakura Town. However, the Gotei 13 had anticipated his invasion, and in order to face off against Aizen, they had replaced the real Karakura Town with a fake version in order to prevent Aizen from creating the Oken. So this now takes us to the end of chapter 315. Now at this point in the video, I want to discuss the parallels that exist between the Hueco Mundo arc and the Soul Society arc. I want to prove why these similarities are purposeful and why they were thought out by Kubo, and it wasn't him just recycling ideas out of laziness. So let's first talk about the differences between rescuing Orihime and rescuing Rukia. The entire Soul Society arc centers itself around the rescue of Rukia, whereas the rescue of Orihime is a side plot that occurs during the Hueco Mundo portion of the Arrancar arc. Rukia was forcefully taken to the Soul Society. She wasn't given a choice like Orihime was. She had to face the consequences of her actions from this ancient civilization that has well established law and order. So knowing this, we can establish that the Soul Society arc is about reasoning with your opponent, whereas the parallel mirror to this occurs during the Hueco Mundo arc, where Orihime is given a choice to leave for Hueco Mundo. She decides to leave with Ulquiorra in order to save her friends, and she is taken to a lawless world inhabited by the Arrancar, individuals who have no sense of reason. During this rescue attempt, Ichigo won't be able to change their mind or alter their ideals by resolve alone, and this is what I meant earlier during Ichigo's final battle with Grimmjow. He had to find a way to become in tune with his battle instinct, that raw urge to not hold back and to utterly destroy your opponent. Ichigo had come to adopt this into his fighting style via his Hollow Mask, which contrastingly he had rejected during his battle against Byakuya. During the Soul Society arc, it was proven that Ichigo could have reasoned with Byakuya, and through his resolve he ultimately ends up changing his mind. But this isn't the case in Hueco Mundo, so yet again we have another mirror parallel comparison that we can make between these two story arcs. If you know anything about the Espada, then you'll know that they desire to know their purpose and their ideals. They are a group of lost individuals who are following Aizen to various degrees of loyalty. You have a character like Ulquiorra who is very loyal to Aizen, then you have individuals like Noitra and Grimmjow who mostly act of their own accord. But as you know, when it comes to the Soul Society, this is far from being the case. The ideals and purpose of each of the individuals within the Soul Society are well established. Saving Rukia was the main objective of the Soul Society arc, whereas saving Orihime is one part of a larger objective, which is to defeat Aizen. The goal during the Arrancar arc is to prevent Aizen from creating the Oken, and to stop him from overthrowing the Soul King. The stakes are far more grandiose than just saving one individual. The Arrancar arc has Ichigo and the others save reality as a whole. To further emphasize these points, Ichigo fights with resolve during the Soul Society arc, and he fights with instinct in Hueco Mundo. When Ichigo arrives to save Orihime and he wears the Hollow Mask, it frightens her. And this is in contrast to the reaction that Rukia has upon seeing Ichigo rescue her. Rukia was relieved while Orihime was afraid, another purposeful parallel that exists. While the plot structure between these two arcs may be similar, the execution of the plot points and the theme of the story are completely different between the two arcs. Orihime even questions the reason for Ichigo coming to Hueco Mundo. Was it really to rescue her? While Rukia had no opportunity to doubt the reason behind Ichigo's actions during the Soul Society arc. In Hueco Mundo, Ichigo was being beaten by Grimmjow until Orihime had encouraged him and had reaffirmed his reason and purpose for fighting. While during the Soul Society arc, Rukia, who had accepted her fate, was reassured to continue living by Ichigo. So let's now now go into more examples of these parallels that exist between these two arcs. After being fired out of Kukakushiba's cannon during the Soul Society arc, Ichigo and the others are forcibly split up upon entering into the Serete, while during the Hueco Mundo arc, when they arrive within Los Noches, they choose to split up at the Forked Path. They were forced to split up during the Soul Society arc because of the way that they had infiltrated into the Serete, while in Hueco Mundo they split up out of choice. Another key parallel is Uryu's battle against Zaido, which echoes his battle against Mayuri during the Soul Society arc. Within Hueco Mundo, Uryu is of course accompanied by Renji, but together they are unable to defeat the mad scientist of this arc, and so the mad scientist from the prior arc arrives and takes on the mad scientist of this arc. A very similar situation like this occurs between Ichigo and Noitara, which mirrors Ichigo's battle against Kinpachi. Now because of Ichigo's injuries, he is unable to defeat Noitara, but then the battle-hungry individual from the Soul Society arc faces off against the battle-hungry individual from this arc. Kinpachi vs Noitara is similar to Mayuri vs Zaido because these Shinigami are facing off against their Arrancar equivalents. Let's now move on to the role that Yoruichi plays within the Soul Society arc in comparison to the role that Nel plays within the Hueco Mundo arc. These are two individuals who end up having a transformation of some sorts, while also being an ally to Ichigo. These two individuals are also mirror images of each other. While Yoruichi had left her positions within the Soul Society out of choice, Nel of course was ambushed by Noitara, thus resulting in her being forced out of the Espada after her hollow mask was damaged and she had reverted back to a child form. There is a similarity between these two characters, as they end up being the voice of reason within both of the arcs. Yoruichi stops Ichigo from recklessly pushing forward by advising him to take a step back and to begin training his Bankai, whereas Nel is the voice of reason towards Orihime, as she convinces her to cheer for Ichigo, which results in Ichigo having the conviction to defeat Grimmjow. Again, these are similar character types, but they have very different roles within the story. I believe this theory of parallels existing between these two arcs because there are so many of them. It is hard for me to believe that Kubo did not intentionally plan these, through how both portions of these stories feature a rescue, but the opponents are the opposites of each other, one being Shinigami and the other being Arrancar. And similar to the captains and lieutenants of the Gotei 13, most of the Espada are very well written characters that Kubo has taken the time to flesh out, especially with the character designs of each of the Espada and the aspects of death that he ascribes to each one of the Espada that perfectly complement their personality. If you compare the appearance of Grimmjow against Ulquiorra, you can tell that Kubo has conveyed Grimmjow's rebellious nature through his uniform, the way that his sleeves are rolled up and his jacket is zipped open, as well as his wild and messy hair. And this is in contrast to the well-composed Ulquiorra, whose uniform looks far less disheveled. He has a quiet but yet menacing appearance. It is the way that he carries himself that leads us to believe that he is very powerful. He is observant and more reserved than Grimmjow, and like I said, it's reflected in his appearance. Speaking about Ulquiorra, there are some interesting exchanges that occur between his character and Orihime's. When he arrives to tell Orihime that her friends have arrived to rescue her, she appears surprised, but Ulquiorra tells her that they should hold no meaning to her anymore, because she is now one of them. Especially after having demonstrated her powers in front of Aizen by healing Grimmjow's arm, she has demonstrated that she is useful to the Espada. When Chad is defeated by Noitara, Ulquiorra arrives to deliver the news to Orihime, stating that he has died, but Orihime remains adamant that he isn't dead. He tells the hopeful Orihime that her friend's efforts are meaningless, and they may as well be rushing to their slaughter. But Orihime demonstrates her bravery and her attachment to her friends by slapping Ulquiorra across the face. Now all of these interactions that Ulquiorra has with Orihime ultimately build up to his revelation that he has in the next portion of the story, but I'll be talking about that in the next video. So now we're going to be moving on to the third and final section of the Arrancar arc, and in my next video I'll be speaking about the entirety of the Fate Karakura Town segment of the story, including the long anticipated final battle between Ulquiorra and Ichigo, as well as the various battles that occur within Fate Karakura Town as the Gotei 13 face off against Aizen and his Arrancars. And as a side note, if you want me to talk about the Turn Back the Pendulum arc, then let me know in the comments, because I have covered it already in an older video that I uploaded on my channel, and because this arc takes place before the Fate Karakura Town arc, it may be worth checking out that older video, or let me know if you want an updated version of that video. As always, thank you for making it to the end of this video, and I can't wait to see you in my next Bleach arc analysis video. If you enjoyed this video and would like to see more like it, then please consider supporting my channel on Patreon. I have multiple tiers with rewards including access to an exclusive Discord server, video scripts, as well as being the first to know about unreleased upcoming videos. Thank you for your time, and whatever you choose to contribute I will appreciate, and it will mean a lot to me.